And it's that judgment element that we don't even realize is running the show all the time. And we think we're doing something better if we're fighting against judgment or fighting against the wrongs. But in that, you're still fighting, which means you have to come down to the level of whatever you're fighting. Even if you're fighting the good fight, well, you're still fighting.
Mm.
So, what other choices do we have? So, there's one tool that we use, which is interesting point of view. I have this point of view, which is choosing to be in allowance rather than acceptance. Because if you're doing acceptance, you're accepting it as a reality that you have to participate in. Allowance is, wow, that's an interesting point of view. And I say that slowly because people think it's point of view. It's an interesting point of view. Interesting
Mm.
place I'm viewing this from. And in that, you start to recognize you're choosing. And what that does, it takes you out of the polarity, which is inherent in every judgment. Because in each judgment, there's either a positive or a negative, or in most judgments, there's both.
So, Dane, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on the show. And I have, as we mentioned off air, I've followed your work for a very long time, probably almost a decade. And I found some of the free tools that you've given out online have really, really helped me. And for people who don't know your work, Access Consciousness and your story, do you want to give a quick overview as to, yeah, how you discovered the tools that you help people with Access Consciousness and also the journey to where you arrived?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, access consciousness, in short, is it's about accessing the awareness that's already within you and within each of us that
Mm,
allows us to create the miraculous life we always knew should be possible that we don't see very many people choosing.
mm,
And so it gives you tools to access that, really. And I came to it 24 years ago. I was a chiropractor. I was living in Santa Barbara, the only place that's it's close to Byron Bay, but not quite, as far as its beauty.
yeah.
And so here I was living in paradise. I had a girlfriend who, I thought we had the perfect relationship, and yet I was waking up unhappy for the
Mm,
better part of 3 years. And I was doing the work. There are a lot of us out there that we're willing to do the work, but sometimes the work doesn't get us very far if we don't have the right tools. And so I got to a point after a weekend workshop because I was putting weekend workshops on my credit card because I knew there had to be something different. I was reading every self-help, spiritual, metaphysical, money-making book I could find
mm,
and instituting the tools. And what would happen is I go to a weekend workshop, I'd be happy for a couple of days, and then it felt like everything I had gained was lost again.
mm,
And it was after one of these weekend workshops where exactly that happened. And I just, something in me broke and I had had enough. I said, universe, I'm done. You got 6 months. Either my life actually changes or I'm out of here. And I literally set a date to end my life. And
wow.
I thought because of everything I'd experienced that would work a little bit and then go away, I thought, yay, I get out of here. And it gave me this amazing sense of peace.
Mm,
And a week later, I see an ad for this thing called Access Consciousness, and it said, Access, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I was like, I hate you. My life is pain, suffering, and glory. Go away. And I ended up calling the girl because, I'd learned that if you love something or hate it, there's something in it for you.
mm,
And I ended up calling. I had a hour and 15-minute session. And I went from depressed and suicidal and wanting to leave the planet to grateful to be alive and happy, knowing I would never go back to that place. And I literally, prior to this session, I was angry with the world. After the session, I was grateful for every experience I'd ever had. And I went, now this, okay, I'm in. If life can feel this way, I'm in. And so
mm,
I actually met the founder. That happened to be his stepdaughter. He that did the session of Access Consciousness bars with me, and I met the founder shortly thereafter. And meeting this man, it was like we were friends upon meeting each other. It was like my brother from another mother, and we started exploring. So we have a definition of consciousness, which is where everything exists and nothing is judged.
mm,
And Access at the time had several tools for getting out of judgment and also getting out of any fixed point of view that you have. And he and I together started exploring, and the tool set just exploded because we would talk for hours about like I would say, "Hey, Gary, I've got this limitation with money." And he'd go, "Well, number one, there's no such thing as a money issue. It's an issue in what you're willing to receive." And I was like, "What?" And then he said, "The purpose of money is to change people's realities." And with one sentence, he took me from not being willing to have money to actually desiring money, because that's the only thing I ever wanted to do in the world, is
Mm,
change people's reality, see them get happy, but also be happy myself, you know?
mm,
And so we started on this exploration, and we found the rabbit hole goes way deeper than any of us ever imagined. But what we find within it is we each have a miraculousness within us, if it doesn't sound too cheesy to say that, that
no.
if we can access that and actually bring that to the surface over and above, or instead of putting our focus on or our instead of limiting our miraculousness with the problems and the judgments for and against and the fight against what's wrong and all that, we have a different space that we can function from. And that's really what it's about.
Mm. How was it for you to, after that first session, to completely reframe those habituated responses to life? Because I found within myself, I was raised very much in you need to fight for what you want. You have to, whether that's, and I think most people are probably raised that way. Like you have to work extremely hard. Things are by nature a struggle. And then if you're not focusing, if you're happy, you're stupid. Like I remember literally being
Yes.
told that by people because it's like, well, you're not, what about this problem and this war and you're not engaged in that, then how can you not be embodying the trauma of that and you're just walking around happy? That must just mean you're a happy idiot. And there's
That,
so many layers that I'm still working through to be able to just, as you said, the word for me is like to receive another reality and to actually change my perspective on it to allow it to occur within my life.
yeah,
How did,
whoa.
yeah, sorry.
No, no, I just want to acknowledge, me too. I'm a work in progress still.
Hmm,
It's just that what happens is the work gets easier and progressively more rewarding as you go along. It's
hmm,
like I've been doing this 24 years, and I see what people out in the world would call miracles every single day. I hear
hmm.
about them. I hear about people using the tools. I hear about somebody I facilitated who they're like, "I've had this for 25 years and I don't anymore. And I'm doing that." And I'm like, "I know, isn't it awesome? Welcome to your world." And so I hear this every single day. And still, I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like the birth of what we are capable of is just beginning.
Yeah,
And so there are so many we could talk for the next, we as long as either of us have, and still barely touch the surface. But if we can go to see, we have a definition of consciousness in access consciousness, which is where everything exists and nothing is judged.
hmm,
And it's that judgment element that we don't even realize is running the show all the time. And we think we're doing something better if we're fighting against judgment or fighting against the wrongs. But in that, you're still fighting, which means you have to come down to the level of whatever you're fighting. Even if you're fighting the good fight, well, you're still fighting.
hmm,
So, what other choices do we have? So, there's one tool that we use, which is interesting point of view. I have this point of view, which is choosing to be in allowance rather than acceptance. Now, what's interesting is out there in the world, and we get this a lot. The thing I most commonly hear is people saying, "I thought you were full of shit when you said this, but I found out you're not. It actually works." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So I've started a new rule. If you think I'm full of shit and you find out I'm not, just send me $5. Like that's that's our little exchange, right? But this idea of allowance rather than acceptance, because if you're doing acceptance, you're accepting it as a reality that you have to participate in. Allowance is, wow, that's an interesting point of view. And I say that slowly because people think it's point of view. It's an interesting point of view. Interesting
hmm,
place I'm viewing this from. And in
Mm.
that, you start to recognize your choosing. And what that does, it takes you out of the polarity, which is inherent in every judgment, because in each judgment, there's either a positive or a negative, or in most judgments, there's both. And what does that mean? Well, if somebody goes, you're a jerk, well, the
Mm.
positive is where you align and agree and make it real. Oh, I'm a jerk. Okay. And then what people do to try to offload the judgment they just made real, they then try to resist and react and fight against. I'm not a jerk. You're a jerk. So
Mm.
now we have positive polarity. Now we have negative polarity trying to fight against it. And you're stuck in the middle trying to figure
Mm.
out a different
Yeah.
choice. There is no different choice when you've made judgment real. So the other option is somebody goes, you're a jerk. And you go, oh, interesting point of view. And you don't have to say this to them, probably wouldn't go over very well, but interesting point of view that you have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. And when it's just an interesting point of view, then they can have their interesting point of view and you don't have to solidify it. Because, if you study a little more in the quantum physics realm and the energetics of things, it
Yeah.
takes, or actually just study physics, positive plus negative makes a solid, right?
Mm.
So, okay, so how about by our choice, we change the narrative? We don't
Mm.
have to go down the rabbit hole just because somebody's living in a rabbit hole of their own choosing. We can stay up here and that's a very simple example, but we can
Yeah.
do it and be it with everything. And one of the ways in which it works is anybody out there listening right now, if you have some upset about someone or something in your life, just get the energy of that, where it twists your guts or kind of makes you want to check out or has sort of a heaviness or a yuck or stuck energy to it. And just be with it for a moment and just go, interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Cool. And usually it shifts a little bit. And then, interesting point of view. I have this point of view to whatever's left. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. And what happens?
Mm.
Kind of goes bye bye. But the thing is, that's a freedom we give ourselves. And most people have been so conditioned that they need to prove that they're right by having the right answer, the right conclusion. And if you do any sort of spiritual work or any sort of psychological work, one of the things you're taught more than anything else is to judge what's right and judge what's wrong and only do what's right and separate from what's wrong and know who's wrong and know who's right, except that very construct traps people so dynamically. And we have the choice to go beyond it to actually create the world we would like.
Mm. I hear and receive everything you're saying, but I still find it very difficult when that hits me, when it hits my amygdala. So someone's coming at me in a situation for work, for example, and they're having an attack, what I perceive to be an attack, to give myself the space not to react in my usual pattern, which makes it, everyone could agree, it makes it 100 times worse. Whenever even if you've won the argument, for example, has that then made the, you might think that, okay, it's cleared that up, I've won the argument, but you can still feel the energy has probably gotten worse and that resentment's
Yep.
been embedded in that person because you've now fortified not only a judgment on your part of them and them on you, you've now created the energy of that judgment between one another and assumptions and all these other things which we walk around the world mostly having and then wonder why we're miserable because as you said, we're consistently then fighting everything that falls outside of what we perceive as right and what we perceive as wrong. And the thing that I noticed recently is I'm beginning to value more than anything is my wellness in its fullest sense. So how I am internally and how I want to be in the world is far more important than being right.
That.
That I found has made the biggest impact because as you said, then I ask, why am I choosing to engage in this negative pattern and behavior with this other person or subject when I can literally, it's a bag that I can just drop and
And
float up
yep.
again. Yeah. But it's
Yep.
taken me a very long. It's taken me quite a lot of. It's taken me a couple of years to arrive there.
As it does for all of us,
Yeah.
because we were not taught to, you know, to your point, you can either be right or you can be happy. You can either be right or you can be free. But
Mm,
we were all conditioned that if we are right, good, perfect, and correct, then we'll be happy and free.
mm.
So it's a lie from the outset that we teach our kids because little kids don't know how to judge. We teach it to them. Now we wonder why little kids or little kids and kids are so mean to each other. It's because they have no filters for the insanity they're picking up from the rest of us.
Yeah. It's a
So they consider it, they just act on the energetics of it and they have no filter and
yeah.
they don't even know why they're doing it. They just know this is what mommy and daddy do. This is what other people do. So this is why we do it. Now, question. So you talked about hearing the clearing statement, one of
Yeah.
the most dynamic friggin' tools.
Mm,
Um, I would say it's one of the biggest upgrades in personal development since we've had personal development. And it's free to everybody. So if I sound like an arrogant ass, then maybe I am, but use it anyway. Try it for you. Um,
yeah.
but so with what I'd love to do, if you wouldn't mind, given that you've used the clearing statement, I wonder the exact thing that you talked about. Can I like can we do a little bit of work on the exact thing where you're in a work situation, somebody comes at you
Yeah, let's do it.
and
Let's go there.
cool.
I'll give people a bit of an overview. So that's how actually I found Dane was on a YouTube wormhole looking for guidance and you were, was it Venice? Were you walking around Italy and yeah, it's
Yep.
probably quite a while ago and I thought, okay, I want to be walking around Venice. That looks nice because at the time it was winter in Melbourne, which wasn't very pleasant. And then you said I was having trouble. I was aware that my negative thoughts were not creating the reality that I wanted. And I was really struggling with breaking patterns, which I think anyone listening to this would know. One negative thought, if you don't catch it, will be another negative thought. If you don't catch that, it's just a self-affirming reality for you. And the next thing, it's spiraled out of control and you're in that unconscious behaviors, which, as you mentioned with the children, we've picked up before we were aware of it, and then maybe intergenerational and past life and all these other things which we can. I don't think that's very helpful then to say, well, there's 1,000 years of shit I'm dealing with. But I heard your clearing statement and I just thought that at the top, I'll be honest, I thought that sounds absolutely nuts. It made no sense.
Yes.
And then I went and you explained every element of it. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. And then I thought, hey man, just stop analyzing this. Let's just try it. Let's just try it. And it 100%. I still use it, as I said, I still use it to this day when I realize I'm on a negative loop pattern about somebody or some situation or my life. So yeah, do you want to give an overview or do you want to just do the
Sure.
exercise with me and so people can learn? That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. And the clearing statement basically is there's two shortened words in there, POC and POD, which stands
Mm,
for going back to the point of creation of wherever you decided to make a point of view solid,
yep.
basically, which is that thing where somebody goes, "You're a jerk," and you decide, "Oh, I am," or "I have to fight now." That right before that, what we're doing is we're asking the consciousness of you to undo the judgments, the points of view you're avoiding and defending, all the stuff that is the unconscious, because we as beings are conscious. And the only time we ever create a difficulty in our lives is when we go against that consciousness,
Mm,
either with unconsciousness, which is choosing unawareness, or anti consciousness, which is choosing against the awareness that we have. Like how many times have you known not to do something and you did it anyway, and it
mm,
turned out just as badly as you knew it would? Well, that's us choosing unconsciousness. And to a certain extent, we believe we have no choice a lot of times in those situations. So, what the clearing statement does is it goes back and undoes from the point of creation, whether that was last week or 100 billion years ago, doesn't matter, or when you were a little kid, wherever
mm,
you instituted a point of view that's limiting you and limiting your being. So, the whole clearing statement is right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, or poc and pod, all nine, shorts, boys, poveds, and beyonds. If you want an entire explanation of that, go to theclearingstatement.com. We have an
Put in the
updated
link.
video now. My
Yep.
friend Simone Millicis and I were in Rome actually at this
Yep.
particular
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Um,
Great.
but so it's free. Just all you got to do is go watch the video. But the short form is POC and pod, and
Mm.
anybody can do
Excellent.
that in, a nanosecond. So, it's like the room we're in, the walls look solid, but science tells us they're 99.99999999999% space. Well,
Mm.
what if it's the same thing with the limitations in our lives? What if it's our point of view that they're solid that makes it so they keep showing up and we can't go through them? So, having given that backstory, so you were talking about a situation, somebody comes at you, let's say business situation. Do you have a specific thing that you can think of without
Yeah.
necessarily mentioning
Let's not.
names?
Yeah. Let's not dox anybody. But
Hmm.
just in terms of, okay, I'll give a sort of a more broad one. Someone thinks that I have mishandled something inappropriately at business with not enough oversight. Uh,
Right.
Even though there's certain things, obviously, when you've got staff that can fall outside of your control.
So let's look at this for just a moment. One of the huge tools that we have in Access is the awareness that 98% of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions and the crap that goes through our head is stuff we're picking up from other people.
Mm.
The other thing that we will do is in the presence of someone having a very strong charge of something,
Mm.
we will often take that on and assume it's ours and assume that we need to create a response to it. But
Mm.
what that does is if there's somebody who does this and doesn't acknowledge their part in it,
Mm.
those are people who will continuously do that with people because they found it gives them control. So they'll
Mm.
come at you with anger and invalidation because they found it gives them control. Okay, cool. Well, number one, where did they learn that? But
Mm.
number two, that response that you have is something that is a button that can be pushed by anybody. And for me, what the space of freedom is when I can walk through the world without any walls and barriers and there aren't any buttons to push. If somebody goes, "Hey, you're a jerk, you're incompetent," I'm like, "Okay, thank you so much." But most of us think if we're not defending all the time, bad things are going to happen, which
Mm.
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because our point of view creates our reality. Reality doesn't create our point of view. So when we have the point of view, if I'm not defended, I'm going to be hurt, we continuously find reasons to be hurt so we can maintain our defenses to try not to be hurt.
Mm.
So now notice as I'm talking about that, the mind, like you follow it, and then there's a point at which it kind of short circuits where it's like, I'm mostly following you, but I'm kind of checking out simultaneously. Well, that's the energetics of it because your mind is so good at functioning from program, but if you deliver the energetics of what's true beyond its ability to compute, it starts short circuiting. If you're
Mm.
gonna be the happy go lucky creature you can, going beyond your mind being in charge is the thing that will set you free. That's what you had when you were a little kid. You didn't have a mind running the show.
Mm.
So everything that brought up, and the
Mm.
question we ask, and I say we because there's thousands of us access facilitators around the world, but the question I'll ask is, everything that brought up from the inception of our conversation till now, will you let it go and destroy and uncreate it, please? Yes, thank you. Right
Yes.
and wrong,
Yep.
good and bad, pot and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, poveds, and beyonds, or just pock and pot all that. I just happen to be very OCD, so I say all the words all the time. Um, okay, so now some people out there are going to be noticing they're getting a little bit lighter, like, wait, you're working on him, but this is working on me. Yeah, because we can all relate to the story.
Yeah.
Our stories are not nearly as different as we think. We just put them all together in a particular way.
Yeah.
So One of the other things that we've recently found, because, for over 30 years, we've been doing this. I say Gary, the founder, and all of us in Access have been doing this dynamic search for how do we get people freer and more them quicker, out of judgment, more into possibilities. And one of the things that we found recently is personalities. And, that sounds like such a deceptively simple word. It's out there everywhere. But what we found is a personality in this sense is something that you will go into to try to handle a situation that disconnects your being from being present there. So what happens is you have Mr. Person coming at you, and they have all of this. Basically, they're trying to prove they have value. They have all kinds of their own personalities trying to validate themselves through you and
Mm.
through invalidating you, probably like a lot of people in their family did. Okay. But
Yeah.
what happens is the thing that affects us is the personalities we choose to respond and that we
Mm.
choose to react. It's very simple to let this go when you're willing to. And all you have to ask, if you get the sense of being in that moment and you just go, personality, well, all this stuff, is that personality or is that my being?
Mm.
And if it's not light, it's personality. Your being always has lightness no matter what's going on. It's a bizarre and beautiful thing that we, when we're being us, have lightness, and to such a degree that one of the tools of access is what's true for you always makes you lighter. A lie always makes you heavier. You have a litmus test now for
Mm.
everything that shows up. So all of the personalities that got activated by that person and get activated by that person, and all the personalities also where you want to change it in their world and heal it, because your being knows they don't have to be that way, but nothing you do changes it. So it becomes an invalidation. So all the personalities that also you're using as an invalidation of you, will you destroy and uncreate it and let it go, please?
Mm.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. Or once again, if you're at home, you can just go puck and pot all that stuff. Whoa. Oh, that's got a bit of energy, my friend. So, as we're doing that, how's that feeling? Honest answer, better, worse, or the same, lighter, heavier? How's that?
It's processing. I'd say it's gone from a thickness to a more of a fluid state that's now moving through my veins.
Okay, cool. And that is the great description because that's exactly what happens. It goes from a brick wall to, oh, okay, there's still something there, but it's not as solid. I'm not as stuck by it.
Yeah.
And if you could imagine being able to do that with, I don't know, 10%, 50%, 90% of your life, it's like, and it's as you see, it's not rocket science. It's being present with it and having some real simple tools to address what's actually going on, not the mental construct of what should
Mm.
be, and judging us and judging them and trying not to judge us and trying not to judge them. It's like, no, let's go to the recognition that judgment is always an invention and a lie.
Mm.
It's not serving us, whether it's coming from the outside or the inside or the inside or the outside, doesn't matter. And we have the ability to change it. So let me do one other thing, even though so one of the other things that we have found goes with these personalities is something that answers to prismatic prisons of judgment. Now, if you think about that, basically the energy of that is that stuff that just sticks us and gets stuck and feels like no matter where we turn, it is just yuck. Like with this particular person, there's no, you could do every spiritual exercise you want, but it's still a stuck pile of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So all of the, so we found a way to change it as we do. So all of the prismatic prisons of judgment that get activated with that person and anybody like them, all of the prismatic prisons of judgment activate, that get activated for you, but also the ones that you adopted when you were younger to try to handle similar situations. Will you let that go, please? and destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, povads, and beyond. Whew.
That is now feeling a lot. I can feel my energy moving through my fingers.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool. Not bad
it's
for 3 minutes of work, eh?
that was big. I gave you a big one too. That's been an ongoing large ball of stuckness with that situation.
Cool.
It's interesting too because I was thinking when it's dissolving into an energy flow in the body and moving, and now I can actually feel it in my fingers. If I had, I do actually have to have a conversation with this person later on today, and I was going to take that stuck brick wall, and they had their brick wall, and we were just going to go like bang, two brick walls
Yeah.
together, and just insanity rather than yeah. This is now a completely different. It's already a different situation. I can feel. It's also that thing of where we think the work is done in the conversation, where the work is done now energetically. Like
Yeah.
already, I can feel that moving because
Awesome.
the other person would obviously be now feeling that new frequency of energy between us.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That.
that's
And can I,
yeah.
um, at the risk of talking too much, I
No, no,
apologize.
no, no. Please.
Well, and I'm so grateful to you for bringing this up because this is exactly the thing we require. Because there's so many, it's like we need stuff in the trenches of life.
Mm,
When we don't know what to do, we're stuck. And, and I'm so grateful for you bringing it up because it gives an example of how this works. And so, two other things, if I may, that might help is the thing that I mentioned before, interesting point of view. I have this point of view.
mm.
Interesting point of view. So as they're taught, and sorry, my ADHD, let me put the other one first. So let's put a pin in that one for just a moment. As you're talking to them, if it, and you probably have a sense of it being able to be different now. You don't have to be two,
Rigid.
walls colliding. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object can
Yeah.
change now, which is awesome. And the interesting part will be to see how much it might be able to change for them, which is really cool. But
Mm,
if you were to lower your walls and barriers,
mm,
there you go. Beautiful. Now pull energy from them and start that right now. And see, we're energetic creatures, and we're just not taught how to use it practically or pragmatically. And this is a very pragmatic use of the fact that we are energetic. So, what happens when you have an altercation sort of relationship with somebody is you both put up walls and barriers to each other, and then what happens in certain situations is you'll put up walls and barriers, and they use force, and they know they've won when they can break it down. And that's what we've learned to do when somebody has a barrier up. And that's where a
mm,
lot of force and anger comes from to try to win and get control by breaking down the barrier. Well, if instead you'll lower your walls and barriers and pull energy from them, because what happens is anytime we have an antagonistic relationship, people will put up barriers to us. And we could all, I mean, we all know that. If
mm,
now that we've acknowledged it, we know what's going on. They put up an energetic wall or barrier, right? Well, we've been taught we need to break it down from the outside. But in actuality, if you, I'm going to try to put this on camera. Some
yeah, yeah.
people might be
Some
watching.
people can see
Okay.
this. Yeah,
Okay, so what happens is here's the person with the wall and the barrier up to you, let's say. And instead of trying to go this way and break it down, instead, if you will lower your walls and barriers and pull energy from behind them, like a Niagara Falls of energy through them, through the barrier, basically through them and all the way through you.
yeah.
So what happens is here's you, here's them with a barrier. You pull energy from here, from behind them, through you, and just let it go. And the energy is the universe's energy.
Mm,
It's not, you don't have to work. You just have to
mm,
ask. It's just an ask and you shall receive moment that's really beautiful if you allow it to be. And what happens is the person has no desire to hold up their wall anymore.
mm,
And this is the way we create a connection with people. And this is amazing because if you do public speaking, for example, there'll be a lot of people there with walls and barriers. Or let's say, I don't know, maybe do a podcast or something. People are
Mm,
sitting in their home with walls and barriers. All you do, just pull energy from them.
mm,
See, we can do this infinitely. And some people would, say it's not really happening or whatever. That's fine. I don't care. But if you get a sense of this being able to contribute, then use it because this is a way energetically to create a connection with people. We keep trying to figure out how to do it mentally,
mm,
but we are energetic creatures first. We're mental creatures second.
mm.
So
I'll
if
give
you,
you
oh,
sorry, go.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I've just got, before I learnt any sort of, before I really started going more into self-exploration and learning more tools, how to deal with life. And I worked as a photographer and I do a lot of portraiture of all different various kinds of people. From top CEOs, politicians, through to just a plumber, for example. Like it'd be very diverse. And more often than not, actually almost always, people don't want to have that situation taken place. They want to feel out of control. They don't want to have their image taken. They've got negative patterns about what they look like. So you'd feel, I'd walk into a room and you felt bang, like you'd hit that wall
Hmm.
was up. And if a wall was up, you'd get a terrible photo because it would just be it'd just be a veneer with no depth and stale. Like no one wants to look at that. So as a practice, and it was before I even knew this language of a practice, the way I approached it would be to have, as you just said, I would have zero judgment of the person or the situation, and all of my walls would come down, and I would be accessing a childlike state. So I'd be goofy, I'd be silly. I would make myself almost not, and this wasn't intentional, but I would be silly. I would be foolish to what people would consider normal behavior. As a result, you could just feel that person's barriers dissipate because, like, if this person's being free, then it enables me to be free. And it's that whole thing of the butterfly effect, and we're affecting obviously everyone with our actions. And it's so amazing. It just came
Yeah.
intuitively, sorry. And then I would finish the job and then I'd walk back outside and bang, I'd notice like I'd have to find my car. There's some asshole I don't like the way he's dressed. And it's so interesting. Like it's so interesting to
Yep.
see like my brain wouldn't be like, hold on, maybe this is a really much more harmonious way of being in the world that's loving and caring. I'd be like, no,
Totally.
job's done, got my paycheck. They'll love that photo. It was funny. And only now, like, 15 years later, I'm like, hold on, you had the answer. You could
Yep.
have been doing that. But the question with this is when you said stop living so much from your mind, from your brain, not the, and the left part of my being started saying, well, what does that mean to what are you then being led by? Is it your heart? Is it like, do you mind just explaining that a bit to people who, like me, got just a bit snagged on if I'm not living from my mind, where am I living
Oh
from?
man, I know. I was one of those people too. I totally understand, and if somebody said stop living from your mind, all I would do is my mind would judge more about how to do that
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
create the exact opposite effect. So consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. So it includes your mind, it includes thinking, it includes judgment. It just doesn't judge it. And
Mm,
so it is it's very similar to that childlike state you were talking about, where you're not aligning with somebody's judgment of themselves.
mm,
And people put forth their image, so we will judge them in the way that they're used to, or the way they know they can
mm.
control, or the way they can
Yeah,
handle. And when you don't, they, there's not two people holding the stick up anymore and it just falls.
yeah.
Well, we can be the same way in our own lives. In other words, because it's funny because a lot of people teach you to go from your head to your heart, but
Mm,
there's a reason we use our heads. A lot of us are really, really good.
yeah,
You don't want to give up something you're really good at. How do we just, how do we allow that to be there too, but then also acknowledge that there's this thing you have called awareness? And some people might call it more heart centered. And that's a beautiful thing for a lot of people to talk about. So it gets,
yeah,
great, great reviews, as it should. It's cool. But what I'm interested in is not trying to eliminate the mind. You're not wrong. It's not wrong. And those of us who rely on it, how about if instead we could start to allow it to tell us when something is light or heavy? Use whatever faculties we have, because what we tend to do, we try to cut off something in favor of something else, but that's usually done from judgment. So instead, what if we went, wow, I've got a mind. I have honed this thing. I have trained it. It is a mind on steroids. Wow, how do I use this? You know, because here's one of the interesting things about people who are really good mentally is they have so many dynamic levels of awareness of things.
Mm.
And usually the way they've been trained to use their mind is to instead of having these dynamic levels of awareness, to try to scrunch it so and try to solidify it into something that is solid enough for other people to understand and get behind and follow and support or whatever. But instead, if you went, hey, mind, I want to set you free to be as bizarre as you actually are. Like, and you could say to yourself, okay, everything I've done to make my mind not as bizarre as it actually is, and not as like really bizarre as it actually is. And I mean, as really bizarre as it actually is, everything I've done to try to be normal. And could there be anything more boring than normal? I think not. Everything that is, pock and pod that shit, you know? And then it's like, hey, here I am. Oh my goodness. You know, like what you did with those people is so friggin' brilliant. And it's beyond the mind. That's your being just showing up, you know.
Yeah,
But then what do? You leave the room and it's like, oh, I got to be a person again. I think being a person is one of the most terrible things we've ever done to ourselves.
yeah. Well, it's because it's a total construct of stale ideas that more often than not you've received from. I mean, I don't know if this is too far off piece, but do you feel as a species, we've been given. It seems very dark when I look at history and the potential. You see the potential of human beings and these great avatars and the potential for joy and harmonious living and beauty. And then you see what the TV is showing us, or just these patterns from other generations that they inherited. Like it's interesting when I sort of reflect on that. Like where on earth did that all come from? Because it's actually that's the state which is not the real state of human beings when they peel back all the layers.
So true. That's too deep a rabbit hole for me
Yeah,
to.
yeah. I thought I'll leave you. Okay.
I do have an origin story, but it's
It's 4 hours in
those
length.
people who think I'm weird now, oh baby, that origin story will pop the lid off of that. But here's okay. So what's true makes us lighter, a lie makes us heavier. So
Mm,
anything somebody says we can use as a litmus test. Okay. And I too see the utter insanity of the world. I see the people trying to enforce more separation and more control and more. And you know what I see underneath it is a lot of us waking the F up.
yeah, yeah.
And and also if you look at it, how much of this has been required to get people out of their slumber of just assuming they can live their life on autopilot and everything will be okay? You know, and there's a certain portion of the population that is entrenching more into the fixed point of view and the separation and the fight.
Mm,
But there's another huge part that's waking up and going, you know what? That's not enough. We need something different as our future. And it's those people that are going to change the friggin' future. And
mm,
people ask me all the time, because one of the things I talk about a lot is creating a sustainable living earth,
mm,
sustainable indefinitely and sustainably growing into more, not just let's keep what we have. And no, that's not sustainability.
mm,
That is irritability after a very short amount of time. So, and people ask me, what does it take? Well, the one thing that will create a sustainable living earth and the one thing that will change every difficulty we have on our planet is more consciousness.
mm,
And consciousness and awareness are synonymous, and consciousness and judgment are not. Consciousness and gratitude, consciousness and joy, consciousness and money, and
mm,
all of it you might desire,
mm,
those are synonymous. But judgment eliminates gratitude, it eliminates joy, it eliminates money. And we've been, you know, there's a certain segment of the population that will listen to a conversation like this, and they've done a lot of spiritual work, for example. And a lot of them have have experienced light and heavy, and it's because there's a promise of a greater possibility, but then the delivery is supposedly had through judging more, and that's where it falls short. But if you could take all of the beauty of whatever it is that you've done that created a lightness in your world, a sense of hope, a sense of possibilities, and notice where it went from that to maybe somebody had a point of view that you bought that made it heavier, you went into judgment, and go back and just go, puck and pot all that crap. What happens is we don't have to recreate the wheel every time. We can start with the sense of hope and possibilities that we've had, because whatever that is true for us. What's true always makes us lighter. And if we can
Mm,
acknowledge, okay, if I had that, even for a moment, I am that. Now, what's it going to take to have that in every area of my life? And that is where our choice comes in.
mm.
And we can either be happy or we can be right. Our choice.
I guess people have been trained to think that their judgments make them a person. I am this, I am not
Absolutely.
that. This is me, that's not me. I wear this, I don't wear that. To every minute this is how I have my coffee. I don't wear that brand. Don't like those underpants. All these like brick upon brick upon brick upon brick, and unfortunately, like it's funny in the small things. Like we all have things we do and like flavors we do and don't like, for example, and that can be funny. But then it's the problem, I guess, is obviously when it becomes to the larger things, where it's like them, it becomes like, I don't like your politics, and it gets to that level of dis-ease. So how would you, I mean, I guess the question is, how would you answer to someone who does just think that judgment makes them who they are? If they let that go, then the thought potentially is, well, am I then just an empty vessel walking around the world with no discernment, no likes or dislikes? Is that something that people just have to experience what the other is?
In a sense, yes. And it's an interesting thing because also using this clearing statement. So uh, short answer to your question, yes. People need to actually
Experience it. Yeah.
experience it and realize, I mean, but if you look at it, like, would you tend to rather hang out with people or animals?
Mm. Oh, animals,
People,
100%.
totally. And trees and
Yeah, yeah,
plants and right?
yeah.
Why? Because they don't
Judge, yeah,
people at you. They don't judge.
yeah.
They
And my
don't
dog
have
judges
fixed
me a little
points of
bit.
view. What's that?
I said my dog judges me a little bit.
Good thing you
It's,
don't have a cat. You want
yeah,
to
oh
see
God,
judgment.
yeah, sitting in the corner. Yeah, yeah. Well, mine's
So
usually
good.
appeased quite easily with food, and then she just moves out of her judgment into unconditional love.
Right.
I wish people were
I
so
know it.
simple. Yeah,
So easy, right? What if it
yeah,
were so simple with people? But exactly that. It's like most people don't like when they're being people like that.
yeah.
The
People,
people,
yeah.
well, let's put it this way. If we look at, there's a large segment of the population that has been entrained to do that as though that's the way to be a person, exactly like you said, but
Mm,
they're not enjoying it and they know it and they
mm,
desire something different. There's also a large segment of the population who has no idea there's something different, doesn't want anything different. They just want to be more right. And those people, I wouldn't even bother trying to present a different possibility because they're not asking for one.
yeah,
So it really becomes then about us not trying to change the people who aren't asking for it. That's not our job.
yeah.
That's not our job. And with total caring, like
Mm,
total caring is acknowledging this person truly has no desire for change. Oh, wow, I can still be totally caring and see that they're never going to change or see that they're going to keep whatever form of suffering there or whatever it is that they're experiencing. And
mm,
it becomes a lot easier when we do this allowance thing, like interesting point of view. I have this point of view.
mm,
And also, all of my personalities and all of these prismatic prisons of judgment I keep going into about all of this, pock and pod that stuff. And in a very real sense, you can go from like we did in the few minutes that we worked together about this thing that was relatively
big.
large, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this is this is why, this is what the access tools do, which is why I keep telling people you're not wrong. You just need some tools that work for the thing you're trying to change, you
Yeah.
know?
I
So,
think sorry,
yes.
no, go on.
No, no, I was just going to say yes was the short answer to your question.
Yeah. It's that's what I love about Access is it's so like I've been given like right and wrongs, I guess. Like don't judge that person. You're told don't judge them. But then it's just kind of like, oh, why? Why? Like they're judging me. I should judge them. Or, be 100% yourself. So how do I be 100% myself? And then I'm judging people who are judging me because I think I'm being myself. And the other big one was when you said helping people who don't want it. Like I've always felt like, oh my God, this person, I know these things. Let me go and try and help my brethren. That is just like, what do I do? Because I'm just going to get frustrated at them because I'm like, why are you changing?
Totally.
I've just spent 6 hours writing you an email with dot points about how you change your reality. 80 dot points with bloody link offs. Go and read it. And then, and then
An
they might,
email you didn't ask for, by the way.
yeah,
That's
you
the
didn't
best
ask for
part.
it, but
Totally.
I put urgent in the header, so you better. So I saw that you opened it, and then I get frustrated because like a month later, I'm like, well, why haven't you transformed into an enlightened being yet? Like moi. So
Oh
it's all
yeah,
these
that's
insanities,
right.
and it's literally, I think it's only happened to me like in the last few months where I've gone, oh, whoa, 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 back off, brother. Maybe this person hasn't asked for your help and just leave them be and let them and if you care for them just hold the space for them to express their within a reason of your energetic state as well, like don't let them steamroll you with negativity, but just
Yeah.
hold the space for them, which I've been doing and it's been a lot more successful. And then the other thought obviously pops up from that is, well, if I just hold a slightly higher vibrational status and I'm not getting involved in that negativity or trying to change them, maybe that's the actual thing that might change them. That would pierce them because that is true love. Because the love will pierce them, and it's love of non-judgment and just holding space for them to be who they are and discover it. Because we're all going to discover it. Like we all have the tools, and that is we need the tools. But then the time to discover it is, I guess, it's our wavering, scenic journey to the stars.
It is. It's a meandering journey to consciousness that each of us chooses each part of the journey. And here's the other part that really helped me with look with exactly what you're talking about, which was, I would be like, hey, have you listened to this? Have you listened to this audio? Have you read this book? Have you done this thing?
Hmm.
Or I would have in my mind sort of this secret judgment that I'm not judging. It's
Yeah,
judgment light, but
yeah. It's love judgment.
you're I don't judge, but you're an idiot. That judgment light that we do, right? And then I realized I was like, oh my God, because I had somebody do it to me and I noticed it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, they're judging what I'm choosing. How dare they judge what I'm not ready to change this yet. And then I went, oh my God,
Yeah.
how many people oh my God. And
It
that
all comes
moment
back.
was
Yeah.
transformational for me because I was like, oh my God, how would I feel if somebody's sitting there judging me? I'm not going to change it just to spite them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I
And how
realized
many times have yeah, we've all done that. As soon as someone's saying you need to do it, my whole schooling was telling me to study it. I'm like, I ain't studying. How dare you tell
exactly.
I don't need to study.
Me too. Me too. I'm like, not only that, I was like, I am not studying and I'm going to get A's anyway. And
Uh,
you know how you tell me that I'm supposed to do this stuff, and I don't have time and whatever? I'm going to do it the night before every single time just to prove you're wrong,
I just got straight
which we're
C's, Dane.
really
So
good at.
that
What's that?
I got straight C's. I just my thing was like I'm just you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just not gonna go. That's how.
I love it.
It's so well, it's funny, isn't it, how we come into the world with. I just remember thinking, well, whatever you're telling me, the outcome of me not doing this, I don't believe you. Like there was a part of me that just went, I know I'll find my way. Like I don't need,
Yeah.
and I'm not Everyone has different experiences of all these things, but yeah, it's just it's funny that then now I didn't. It's taken me so long to learn that lesson of exactly the same thing where I dig my heels in. I'm perpetrating on other people and then wondering why I'm receiving that result. And it's like, well,
That's
wake up,
one,
numbnuts.
that one, dude, that one is a biggie. And one, so yeah, I'll also have a tool for that.
Yeah,
What a
I
surprise.
know.
Um, we've done our best to provide a tool for every place we could screw ourselves up. So
Yeah.
this one is anytime you notice yourself judging somebody else or, making them wrong, whatever, you want to go pock and pod when I was that, pock and pod when I did that. In other words, the only reason we have a point of view about what they're choosing is because in this lifetime or some other, we
Mm,
have done exactly the
yeah.
same thing. So it's actually our judgment of us that we are projecting on
Mm,
them.
yeah.
And it's just like the person coming at you that we were talking about. It's like it's it's not ever actually about us. And if you go puck and pod when I was that, puck and pod when I did that, and everything I've been doing to hold that in place and judge myself through them and them through me, done. Bye bye.
Mm. It's because the things that aren't within you, you don't care. So the things that we judge are things
Exactly.
which are within us. Yeah. 'Cause and the stronger the pull within that is, then obviously that's the stronger the teacher for you, that you need to look at that yourself or let it go. Yeah.
That.
It's just my computer decided it didn't want to see me anymore. My computer's judging. My computer is not
Oh
listening
my
to your
God.
teachings, Dane, at all.
So good. Oh, the technology.
Yeah,
So good.
technology, judging Apple technology. Dane, I just want to finish with your. You wrote a really beautiful article recently on the necessity of hope in these
Mm.
times, and yeah, if you tune into any media, whether it's alternate or mainstream, there's a lot of uh, purpose. It gets clicks, fear-based, and polarity-based viewpoints of so and so destroyed. Are we heading for a third world war? Like, all that, you jump on YouTube and just be like, oh my God, okay, let's just pat my dog for half an hour before I sleep rather than watching one of these. So,
Smart.
yeah, yeah, I sleep a lot better. But yeah, it's something I've also been thinking about is the absolute necessity to hold a positive future in mind for yourself, with the trust and hope that it will occur. So do you want to just talk to that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing that we've been sold that hope is relying on an empty promise that will leave us disappointed, but that's not actually what it is. The hope I'm talking about is the awareness that we have the capacity to create something different. We've seen
Mm,
it in small areas. All of us have seen it in small areas of our lives. Some of us have seen it in larger areas and larger communities. But if we, to the extent that we're willing to not give up hope and also seek possibilities and recognize we have choice, this world, we keep believing, we keep wanting to pretend it's happening to us, and the world would like you to believe it's happening to you so you don't change it. But if we choose,
mm,
we can be the happening to the world.
mm,
What I see with people who come to access classes and actually use these tools, and it's not about coming to the classes, that's part of it, but it's having these tools in their lives, is they stop wondering, how am I going to deal with the world? And they start wondering, how's the world going to deal with me? And what world would I like to create if it's actually my choice? And the
mm,
reason for even bringing up the conversation, because I realize a lot of people out there don't even realize it's a possibility to change your perspective so dynamically that you realize that you are actually crafting your life and your living in your future. And
mm,
this is what is available. And 24 years ago, before I embarked upon a journey with these access consciousness tools, I was out of here. I had given
mm,
up hope for the first time in my 30 years on the planet. Okay. Here I am, 54 years old, going, dude, it is so friggin' awesome to be here. And it's not because of the things that people would look at from this world, where they go, oh, you have a worldwide business and you
mm,
have followers and you have this. I'm like, so? I'm like, are you kidding? I get to wake up happy and I
mm,
get to show other people they're not in a state of hopelessness except by their own creation, which means that they can change it. And that for me is one of the greatest gifts in the world, to see somebody go from, oh, I have no choice and my life sucks and I don't want to be here, to, oh, wait a minute. I'm starting to wake up and realize everything that's in my life right now, I've had some point of view about, I've had some part in choosing. And then going from there, like all it takes for most of us, most of the people listening to this or watching us together, all it takes is just a sliver,
Mm.
something to break through that wall that this reality and world and people are telling us is the only choice and it's all bad and wrong and your future will suck. Because we know it doesn't have to be that way. There's not
Mm.
one of us that wakes up and goes, oh, yeah, I'm sure this is all there is. Most of us have the point of view. If this is all there is, why the hell are we all here?
Yeah.
It's not all there is. And we're just getting started on finding out what's actually possible, but not from an airy fairy, oh, I need to go out in the woods and be away from people to be happy. I'm saying, you know what? There's a lot of great stuff in this world, including a lot of the people. And let's be part of it all. Let's enjoy the nice things of life everywhere, from nature to the creations to the technology to all of it, and use it to create a world that includes us and creates everything is greater for all of us.
Mm.
Why the F not if we can? Why would we not head in that direction?
Yeah. It's putting, yeah, it's just it all it's that seed of that slithering seed of that awakening of consciousness to realize you have the power to choose
That the
is what
power
I've
to
found.
choose.
Yeah. And that everything starts dismantling in a really positive way from there. These other, like I was where I grew up in, Australia's quite a conservative country, and it's I think it's got outside of for example, outside of Hong Kong, it's got the second highest property price for a house in the world. And Hong Kong's a tiny little island full of people, and we're this very large island, very sparsely populated. Although obviously you can't live in the, well, Westerners can't live in the center of Australia. Obviously, Indigenous
Right.
peoples here could thrive there. But so we have a narrative in this country very much that you're, even from tiny, I remember, is that you need to get a house. You need to, so to get the house, you need to obviously then do very well at school, study, go to university, study, get a job, and you need to know all this by the age of 16, like exactly what you want
Yeah.
to do. And then do all that time and then go to the corporate job or whatever that job is so you can then buy the house. So then, oh my God, home, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. Even though I owe $2 million to the bank and I'm now entrapped in a job I don't particularly like and I got to make 8 grand payment this month, I've got four walls and a ceiling, so all good. And
Right.
it's it's just a story, and it's something I realized I'd still, even though I had somewhat moved out of that narrative for myself in terms of work and what I chose to do with my life, I still realized I was adopting that narrative. And it was only recently where I've gone, hold on, 1 second. What if I just put that over here? All the pressure that I've inherited, the idea that I need to have these things in order to be happy and safe, and I just pursue the thing that I love, that I feel light about, and incredible things have already started to happen, and it's been quite a short period of time, but it's already things are just falling into place. And where I felt stuck, like oh my God, I'm stuck in this job I've created for myself, stuck in these things that I'm not necessarily enjoying. And with that new question of dropping the old, all of these options have opened up. Like it's almost now I have too many choices of like what to do, what can come next. And the excitement now behind that is like, what comes next? There's a genuine inquisitiveness to what comes next. And joy has started to seep in. And
Oh
it's,
no. Stop
oh
it.
my God. No, I'm trying to squash it down. I do my best. Like I just have, I'll watch, I'll watch the news for a while and drink 10 coffees. And
That's easy.
I just find it goes. It's great. And then I can deal with my emails. But but it starts, yeah, just with that little bit of awareness that things can be different, and maybe I'm just viewing it in a certain way, and all of this baggage is not even my baggage. It's whose I don't know. It's not even their baggage. It's just baggage. I'm not giving.
Yep.
Hopefully, I'm not giving it to anyone. Yeah, carry that, son.
Well, collect, no, what you do when, see, here's the interesting part. It's like you're not focusing on the trauma, the drama. You're like, I'm going to do what I love. I may be homeless, but I'm going to do what I love.
Yeah,
And, but you,
hopefully not.
like you said, you knew when you were a kid, you're like, I'm going to find my way. you know?
Yeah.
It just takes you a while to actually get to trust yourself and trust yourself
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
universe or whatever, to let yourself do it. But in actuality, you're not handing the baggage to somebody else. It's like the more space you spend and the more time you spend baggage free, the more you create other people having the choice to be baggage free.
Mm,
That's what the world really requires is more of us with the courage to choose something different, something lighter and happier that
mm,
actually works for us so that
mm,
others can know it's possible too and not have such a hard time with it.
mm. So on that, and I'm very conscious of your time, but on that, with what do you have to say to people if someone's listening to this and they're just starting? I mean, a good point would obviously to be do one of your courses, and I'll leave all the link offs in the show notes. But are there any parting words for people? They've kind of gotten you've given so many tools in this. I feel great. So
Awesome.
I feel like I need to send you more than $5 after this conversation.
Well,
Let's
let me
actually
let
leave.
me
Yes.
well, the thing I want to say is you're not nearly as effed up as you think you are.
Mm,
You're not nearly as wrong as you've been trying to make yourself. And it's not nearly as difficult as you've been taught to create what would make you wake up and love being alive. And this is not airy-fairy bullshit that I'm talking about. This is actual practical, being present in your life, kind of like Paul's talking about. Okay. Being present in your life, actually enjoying it, creating money, creating great relationships, creating great friendships, and actually loving being alive. And I don't know when this will air, but I literally am doing a thing called Restoring Hope
mm.
starting, I don't know, in a week, September something, but it's 11 days, it's $22, and I did it
Oh,
because
amazing.
I'd like to see this in the world, you know?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go forward together and stop believing we have to be separate to have what we desire and separate not to take on people's crap. Let's actually like being people again and change what that means and actually enjoy being alive.
A wild thought, Dane. Absolutely
I
wild
know,
thought
right?
to
You may say
finish
I'm a
with.
dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Dane, thank you. So I'm going to leave all the link offs. I'll get this out so people can also access that course coming up
Awesome.
very
Thank you.
shortly. And I'm just so appreciative of all the work you do and just who you are and the change you've
Thank you.
made for people and change for me just in that short period of time. It's been
Yes.
incredible. Yeah. So one more victory, if you want
All
to phrase it
right.
as that. One more slither of light. Um,
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Dane.
Thanks, my
Thank you
brother.
so
It has
much.
been it has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.